Hello, welcome back, PlayBASIC coders. Let's check in for this week's Devlog. We're still talking about 2D cameras. We'll go through this a bit of a second here. We're looking at initially is the classic 2D camera, which manages the depth, the clipping, the draw state for us. Let's go into mode 1. This is actually a rotated mode. I've got this attached to, well, hooked up to the mouse at the moment. And the more interesting one is the perspective mode. Again, it's 2D and we can rotate the camera. So you would have seen demos like this in PlayBASIC before. The main difference is that to make a tunnel effect classically, I mean, here I'm using the outlines here as shapes and the rest of it's all kind of mishmashy stuff. So we've got 1,000 of those in the scene. So on object 10, I'm testing a shape. This is the latest edition. It's classic 2D mode, rotated, and that's perspective. It's pretty good. So 1,000 shapes. There's 100 or so line fragments. They're alpha 50, I think, in this one. I'm not sure now. For each pixel, and they are fading out to the background color, which is the RGB depth Q command, if you didn't know that. Yeah, it's pretty handy. So work lately has been to get shapes working, because they are a bit more complicated than other primitives. I think since I last checked in, all the classic ones are implemented. So you've got, you know, a line, a box, a circle. Ellipses still don't have an option. I might have to convert those to a mesh and then translate that. It's the only way I can think of doing it without and actually have it rotated. If it didn't rotate, you can just draw it as is, I guess. What else we got? Most of the image drawing stuff is there, so just draw image, draw rotated image, draw alpha image, those ones. And sprites are implemented. So sprites have two modes, of course. You've got the classic blip mode and rotated mode. So both of those are implemented. I think there's an issue with rotated mode and the additive ground stuff. I don't think that's added yet. I was really just trying to make sure they all had some representation. Let's have a look at the sprites anyway. While we're here, do we want to try 5,000? Okay, let's just try 5,000 in the scene. Classic 2D blend. Got a lot of work to do. It's a rotated version, so I can spin this scene if we wanted to. And perspective. Nice train going by in the background, if you can hear that. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, when you get out here, you can really see just how many of these things we've got to deal with. It's a lot of work for it to do. That's shapes in line mode. The dot mode here is also supported. I don't actually have support for normal dots, believe it or not, because the amount of work to draw a dot and then have it in the scene and rotate it is kind of insane. There's an awful lot of work. Let's try our shape dots. So if you don't know, you can draw shapes in 3 different states. You can draw the vertices, well, the first point of the connected edge as a vertex. You can draw the edges as lines, or you can fill the polygon shape. I haven't added the filling yet. There's a good reason for that. Turns out it's a bit more complicated to use that filler than I remember. 9 is the dot scene version of this. Click through to perspective. Pretty cool. I should mention too, at the moment this shapes don't really have great clipping, so once you draw it to the scene, it'll get processed to the camera. The 2D mode has better clipping than the 3D mode, so something to be aware of. If we just test that with which version of that was it? Draw 9. Mode 0 on the end of these commands that's the dot mode. 1 is the line mode. The shape has to be set up to accommodate this stuff actually. Now, these dots here are actually lines. They should render as dots by the filler. It's a pretty brutal thing for it to do. Lines require more complicated clipping, by the way. And that's something I actually tackled in the rotated camera version as well. There's a few things that I've taken the time to experiment with, and one of them's an improvement to the line clipper. I don't like the old one. I wrote it a long time ago now, and it's used everywhere. I thought I could just flip it over and replace it, but that actually turned out to not work properly. Anyway, of course it did. Nothing ever worked straight away. This didn't work straight away. I had a day of bugs and crashes and all kinds of weird stuff. That turned out to be, it was just, internally it was allocating memory all the time. Eventually it's running out of memory. This is what happens. This is what happens. Let's go, if I try mode 2, which is the filled mode. No, it's get nothing. Because there's no support for it doing that at all. It's a lot of sprites for it to draw. If we have a quick recap, we'll just chuck everything in the scene into the scene. So we've got some of these objects will be circles, some will be lines, normal boxes, draw image, draw rotated, polygons, polytext required, alpha image. We've got our filled triangle, ground, triangle ones, quads, and this is our shape and our line shape, and should give us an error if we're trying to create something that doesn't exist yet. The things with images in these demos, they're all effects images, by the way, so it doesn't support, once you go into rotated mode, it doesn't support video images at all, not even one iota. It just helps it really, not having to manage the draw state all the time. It's such a pain, and can actually slow things down. It's a pretty insane looking scene, but you get the process of the point really. It can handle a fair bit of stuff. It's not going to be, it can't perform miracles, but you'll get something out of it. I just like the fact that you can do that now without really having any great onus on you to, like everything we're doing here, you could do without this being built in, but that meant that you had to, like, to make the sprites appear to do what they're doing here, you would have to be translating its position, managing its size and rotation yourself. You can do that, and there are a number of examples on the PB forums that do this, but now you don't have to. That's all we're talking about. It's just easier. Yeah, just a bit simpler. So the next thing to do will be to get our shapes. Did I reset that correctly? No, I didn't. So the dots weren't rendering. I thought that was fine. Will be filled shape. that will be something that we'll need to have. Should have our dot. Yeah, there we go. So they were in the scene, but they weren't actually doing anything because they were set to, that shape in particular was set to be filled surface. If you're not familiar with shapes, you can draw inside polygons with shapes, and they can be convex, concave, or complex polygons. So shapes are used in sprite collision, all kinds of places throughout the code base. And the way the rendering works is it's kind of a span-based solution. So it takes the vertices and edges and then produces a span list and renders that to the frame buffer. That's all fine. But it doesn't really have a nice friendly interface. And here we need to actually access the data of the vertice buffers and then rotate our thing after that and render it. So we kind of need to butcher the whole process a little bit because our camera is being inserted into this process whether it likes it or not. Look, it works pretty good for most stuff. In many places it works better. The line clipping here in particular, this is certainly faster than the old one. That's good, it's good. And of course, the main one that started all this process here was maps. I haven't got that in here, and I don't have a complete version of that yet, but I have built that, and I know the test will work. I do think that we should be able to put a map, a rotated camera, some perspective in the scene, some sprites, and that'll give you a bit of fun, and you'll be able to create something interesting with that. As for what, that's up to you. Maybe you'll work out a new way of doing a classic game or whatever. But yeah, on the controls, I should point out the commands and controls for this really boil down to there's a draw mode command for the camera, and there's just 3 different settings. There's mode 0, which is the classic mode, it's how it works by default. So this doesn't have any impact on old demos. They're just going to run the same way as they did anyway. Mode 1 is the rotated mode. This is mode 1. So much stuff on screen, it's hard to make sense of what's happening, but there we go. What do we got? We've got, I think there's 5,000 sprites and 1,000 different captured weird monstrosities on the scene, and the perspective mode. So rotated and rotated perspective are really the same render method without the perspective, with or without it, pretty much. And they have one difference too to the normal camera, is they center around the viewport, or the axis here in the center. So that might be a bit weird initially, I think. So it's more like a 3D camera. And those people, who are old enough to know some of the stories about PlayBASIC effects would know we had this mode in PBFX. Unbelievably, about, back in 2007 or something like that, 2008, I don't know when it was now. That project's been since retired. We're trying to replace too many things all at once, which is just a nightmare when you don't have adequate public testing. And you need people to write things, because without that, you need other people to use it to find the things that you don't see in your API. It's really critical that happens. And that's true for whether it's building command sets or making video games or whatever you're doing. You need other people to use it, because they will uncover things. They'll use commands in orders that you never anticipated that may well break. I'm not saying this is bug free. I'm saying that I need people to test this stuff out there in the real world and see what they can do, and then see how they can break things. And if we can fix them, great. If they're just a weird byproduct of how this is done, you know, we live and learn. But that's just, that's what we need people to do. Pretty cool. I'm running on the laptop here, by the way, too. And it's not a new laptop. It's like 2017 vintage. So, all software rendering in PlayBASIC Classic. Good old PlayBASIC. I never thought I would say that. I never thought. Even the extension to PlayBASIC, actually, the G2D extension for 164 strand. I know it's complicated to wrap your head around these different editions of this stuff. Is that these are different generations. 165 is a complete rewrite of how the instruction set works, how all of the back end works, and it took place at a time when, you know, my life changed dramatically, and then I was unable to complete that work the way I wanted to. And even this, I've added things to this that I've always wanted to have in it, but they weren't possible or practical because I need secondary support stuff to be written first, you know. Like adding maps to this will be, I think, an enormous feature that will have, but you still have to wrap your head around how all of these things work and how they fit together as it's like a puzzle, isn't it? So it's just taken such a long time. Calling this 165 is kind of ridiculous. This has hundreds of thousands of lines of new code in it. So it's not really 164 anymore. It's somewhere up closer to PlayBASIC 2. And PlayBASIC 2 is all about the new compiler. One cool thing too is actually on the forums where Steve's been working on is having a go at building an alternative IDE. I think the concept is, hey, let's just get something, you know, bare bones. Let's just get it working. Let's get rid of some of the faults that we have with the existing editor. For those people who don't know, I have the source code. The editors, both editors were written by other people, and I don't have a bad word to say about them. They're great. I still like using Playwright. It's simple, it's straight to the point. It needs certain things. I wish it had some things in it. You know, I wish we had something that was type aware. That would make it much easier for people to write and experiment with things, but you know, just how it is. But those tools are, there was two of them actually, those tools are very old, very, very old. Danny's IDE is probably 20 years old, and we don't really even publish that anymore. We did for a while, and then Empty wrote the one you see as Playwright. I use kind of an experimental version of it, which is on the forums. It's slightly newer than the one that comes with it, with the learning editions. That's going to be the next challenge, isn't it? So, I mean, just quickly about that stuff is once we get maps in, I think that'll be probably next week, and my to-do list is pretty much empty. I don't really have any other things pressing on me that I wanted to add, which means building releases, getting out there and it doesn't mean we finished. It just means that the next round of updates and user feedback will give us what we need to do next, what we need to have implemented in these things. That's why it's so hard and so slow. It's almost dependent upon what people do with it. Like some of the bugs I found over the last few months, a lot of them were transitional problems. They were things that were caused going by the rewrite. That's understandable. I found a bug today in the shape library where it was using the wrong scale for the clipping radius of the shape. But that's unbelievably old code. That's 10 plus years old at least, I would say. So that's a fault that's in all existing PB applications that probably have weird clipping behaviors because of that. Yeah, anyway, it's crazy. I mean, the compiler crashing bug with the backupping process stuff, that was very weird. It was completely unexpected. Doing one thing and all of a sudden it's crashing. You're like, whoa, what the hell's going on here? You know, another week of your life disappears trying to work out what's going on and how to fix it and how to make sure it doesn't happen in the future. Now, these things would have been seen by other people. Of course they would have been. That's just how this stuff goes. But if they're not reported, but you've got to make sure you create something that's very simple to see what the problem is that you're outlining. You know, hey, here's 3 lines of code that do this broken thing. Don't give me 200 lines of something I've got to filter through and trying to work out why something's happening. That's, you know, given the option, I'll pick trying to fix something that's quick and easy over something that might take me a week or days, you know. Anyway, dudes, it's way too long. No one will watch this. Thanks for those people who did hang around to the end, and we're making some progress, and some pretty interesting progress too, isn't it? All right, see you next time. Bye.